Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. And then I start to cough just as I welcome you back. Sorry. The Hearts of Iron 4, Black Ice. Of course, I'm Gamer1745, and we're going to continue with this. Okay, we've completed the national focus of reclaiming the Sudetenland. Now, Sudetenland presents the world with problems. And it goes back to, well, before World War I. It goes back to the Habsburg Empire. The Habsburg Empire is a multicultural empire. The Habsburgs are multiculturalists. They are pan-Europeanists. At their height, sort of hold the classic sort of central Habsburg Empire, but they also own Spain and much of the New World at their height, including the Spanish Netherlands, which is all of the Netherlands for a while at least. Then it sort of shrinks to what is sort of modern-day Belgium. And then the Bourbons take over Spain and that part, but the Habsburgs stay around. And so they're sort of carving up territory. Well, at the end of World War I, for various reasons, one, to try to just weaken the Central Powers, just purely blatant on that part, partially coming from Wilson's 14 points, and I forget which point it was, is that there should be local determination to national, sovereignty for the people. Now this completely falls apart, but they still sort of kind of try it. So you can sort of click here, click down here, and sort of click over here. These areas sort of, and that's sort of drawn to be able to do something of the Sudetenland, have majority Germans living in them. And in some of the areas, it's primarily Germans. I mean, like 80-90%. Well, now that land had been part of, and again, we can jump back in history recently reading about some of this stuff. After World War I is over, and you have the breakup of the Habsburg or Austria-Hungary Empire, Austria calls itself German Austria. And there's an immediate move by German Austria to get unification with the rest of Germany. But one of the fundamental precepts of the Versailles Treaty and any other subsequent treaties, because there are some subsequent treaties dividing up Turkey and dividing up sort of Hungary and whatnot, but coming basically out of Versailles, for lack of a more precise term, one of the precepts is Austria cannot become joining part of Germany, cannot, as part of the signatures of the treaty, become part. So they can't get national self-determination. If every single Austrian wants to be part of Germany, no, can't do it. You're not allowed. So they very quickly changed their name from Austrian Germany, I think that's how it is, or German Austria. I'm not sure, but to the Republic of Austria, is setting it up as a separate republic. So that's sort of how it is. Now, even though you sort of have national self-determination by these different regions, they sort of try to draw somewhat sensible maps. If you were really trying to, instead of, again, this isn't what anybody wants other than the Kingdom of Serbia getting its own back and trying to get a big land grab after World War I to Yugoslavia. And it's originally the Kingdom of the Kingdom of the Serbs, Croats, Albanians, and I don't know what. It's a long, like 3 or 4 different people's titles in it, and it eventually gets changed to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. But originally it's, sort of listing off a bunch of different people's groups. And so this point of national determination goes away, and they try to make sensible countries. Well, these areas had been sort of German Austria, if you will, and you forgot the Bosnians. Yeah, I don't know if the Bosnians were in the title or not, or no. Okay, yeah, the kingdom, yeah, there you go, the Kingdom of the Serbs, Croat, and Slovenes, I think, as Toyjet is getting. It was very much, the original sort of name was very much along those lines, probably in Serbo-Croatian or whatever the original official would be, but that was sort of the original name of it. Yeah, yeah. Marines are sort of. I've had this debate, an argument that with, and I will enter this with Brett. So Brett is now saying that Brett is a sailor. So you can now call Brett a sailor because that's what he is. He's not a soldier, he's a sailor. So, see you, Alex. Good to have you here, even though we disagree. I don't think they're Nazis because I don't think either of those groups that you're saying there, and I'm not going to go into them, IKB, are anti-Jewish or overly racist. But, of course, Antifa thinks the Republicans are Nazis, so, you know. So, but Brett wants to be a sailor. Call him a sailor. Because, you know, he's a Marine, like a merchant Marine. He's a Marine. He sails on boats. Now, of course, soldiers are people who fight, you know, battles with guns and whatnot. And a Marine might be a type of soldier, sort of like a cavalry officer, sort of like an artilleryman. See, in the British tradition, we can look, and see, America comes from the British tradition. There were some army regiments that were given sea duty. Yes, you're part of the Department of the Navy, and you're a subset of the Navy. So that's why you're saying you're a Marine. A Marine is the Marine. This is the Marine, ocean, sea, Marine, like a submarine below the Marine, below the sea. So not that you're a submarine, but you're a Marine. You're a sea guy. You float at sea. You're a sailor. But the early Marine regiments were just early ones were just standard British Army regiments that over time were traditionally more and more deployed on British ships, as normally at platoon and company strength instead of battalion strength, you know, spread around the ship. And as time goes on, they are sort of converted into Marines, but they are still very much seen as soldiers, naval soldiers. So I would argue that Brett is a naval soldier, a specialist soldier, like a cavalryman, like a tanker, but he is like a paratrooper, like a ranger, but he is a naval soldier. So it's a special type of soldier. Maybe not a common soldier, Brett, but I would argue that you are a soldier. So, but if you prefer to be called a sailor, that's fine by me. You're a sailor. Yes. So, but I've had this debate with Marines before, and they don't want to be called soldiers, but I think they are, you know, amphibious soldiers, amphibious specialist soldiers. I don't mean to degrade, but it's sort of like all triangles are rectangles, but not all rectangles are triangles. So I would say all Marines are soldiers, but not all soldiers are Marines. And yes, it's semantics, but, and soldier does, you know, they want to separate themselves out from the army. So yeah, that's sort of my take on you. So yeah, so back to the topic at hand. So now, again, back to the problem of the Sudetenland. So you have this principle in the Versailles treaties of trying to have national people settle where they want to be. And then you also have, in the Western powers, shall we say, this principle of democracy that is not just a good way to help govern a people, but as a fundamental principle. So when you have a group of people that's in a geographical defined area. So it's not just a percentage of the people spread throughout Czechoslovakia, but it's in a defined area that overwhelmingly, democratically wants to not be part of the country that they are currently in. How do you settle this issue? It's a tricky issue. It really is. Now, there was overwhelming support in the Sudetens for National Socialism. Does that mean they were mostly National Socialists? No, I don't think so. And actually, as time goes on, a lot of them become, I don't mean just by losing the war, but become somewhat disenchanted with National Socialism because they see it as sort of super Germanism. But a lot of them are religious. A lot of them aren't looking for one-party rule ultimately. They're not looking for Hitler's dream. They're just looking for a unified Germany and Germanism, if you will, which National Socialism is a type of Germanism. But one thing that does function under National Socialism that Hitler is very much pushing and is still a thing today is trying to unify the culture and unify the people. Before Hitler comes to power, there is no single one German dictionary with one proper spelling of the words. There are regionals of every word. There's regional spelling differences. There isn't, the way, there may be the Kaiser's German or something, but then Bavaria spells words differently and speaks German differently. And as Lum has informed me, sort of what is now sort of referred to as High German as sort of being the standard. So that is very much a National Socialist push, which in some of these areas rubs people the wrong way. And as somebody's saying, oh, you're not wrong. Okay, I'm not wrong. Good. Brett thinks I'm not wrong. Good. So yeah, so he acknowledges they're elite soldiers. Is I would very, very readily grant the Marines. They're not the common soldier. But so you have this sort of idea here. So how do you deal with Czechoslovakia and the Sudetenland? Now, this gets back to last episode before we went on to some other diatribes. For those of you uninterested in my diatribes, and this is not going to be one of them, but this is discussing this important issue in principle, I'm talking about fighting a little war today instead of a big war tomorrow, and that's oversimplifying things. If you think Hitler and the Nazis are going to be satisfied with securing German majority areas, Austria, the Sudetenlands, Danzig corridor, maybe Memel, hell, maybe even parts of Switzerland. I'm glad they've sort of done this. Thank you. Like this part of Switzerland, and maybe even, maybe down here, I don't know, but definitely not this part of Switzerland, which is majority French. But, get that. And if Hitler's going to be satisfied, and the Nazis are going to be satisfied with that, then okay, it's not worth another world war. Oh, Tippett's going, okay, thanks for being here, Tippett. Have a good night. And so, and I could see, they're not even in betraying the Czechoslovaks, going that, hey, well, when we drew your country's boundaries, and it was largely the people in Paris, maybe with some input on some Czechs, and there was definitely some battles down, shall we call it, the tail end of Czechoslovakia. Here that in the formation and drawing up its borders. But a lot of it happens in Paris. Maybe we erred in drawing up the borders the way we did. And whether this should have been part of, just doesn't look, this might look okay, but, this doesn't look, border gore would be the term. If we had given this directly to Austria, do you want to, since they were, especially the French, but also the British, were trying to minimize the power of as well as the Belgians and the Poles and other people, trying to minimize the power of the German state. Do we want to add territory to it? So maybe they did error in this. So there's this feeling. So do we go to a world war over this? Maybe our democratic principles, maybe we let it go. And I guess we can talk about it now. Had Hitler not moved to this focus, the fate of Czechoslovakia, and basically militarily invade the rest of Czechoslovakia is basically what he does. Had he not done that, and then demanded the Sudeten corridor, I think he could have gotten away with his war with Poland without the British and the French coming in. Because had he not grabbed up the rest of Czechoslovakia and all this territory out here, it might have looked like Hitler's actually going to honor his word. He might actually do it. But because he doesn't honor his word and takes so soon, not like 20 years later, not after really, I get distracted by photos. There's Ribbentrop. There's Raeder. That's, of course, Hitler. I don't know. Sorry, I get distracted looking at some of these. Is that Delag? Probably butchering his name. I don't know. I think that's List right there. I don't know that the colorization helps much, but okay. There's Goebbels right there. Got a profile of Goebbels. Is that von Rundstedt? Maybe. I don't know. So, putting something shiny in front of Gamer and get him distracted. So, because Hitler is shown to not abide by his agreements, that is what really pushes France and Britain into a stronger alliance with Poland and the Antis. So that's Hitler's big sort of mistake. It was taking too many reigns. Besides, they had been very unstable while with it. Yeah, well, democracies can work so long as there is a sense of civic community. And this is, I was actually watching something from Black Pigeon Speaks, if you've seen his YouTube channel just earlier today. And he talks about how he thinks all this immigration into America is going to destroy America because of the sort of civil community is being destroyed by huge numbers of foreigners coming in. And so if you have people without a common sense of self, democracies don't necessarily work. And that is a very big potential danger. Okay, so we can demand the Sudetenland, we can attempt to influence their government, or we can prepare to invade. Well, we're just going to demand the Sudetenland. Munich Conference, historic day for Germany. Okay, so we've just grabbed up more territory. Very good. Very, very good. Okay. We'll do that. Munich Agreement, yep. Now, of course, I believe in constitutional republics that have a, some democratic mechanisms within them, is what I believe is basically a good way to do things. Let's go for this heavy fighter model of the BF-110. Okay, well, we've got some new airplanes. I know we need more tanks, but we're building, hopefully. Those are obsolete. Those are obsolete. Well, we're going to start some cast bombers. get those going. And let's look at what we need. And so constitutional republic with democratic elements can be highly democratic or can be limited democratic, highly limited. It's not like, oh, it's got to be what the U.S. Constitution is. I really much do love the U.S. Constitution, not trying to, make it, we could use more rifles, more artillery, maybe, more rifles, more artillery. Not trying to, say I want something different in it, but I'm not saying, because I'm looking at this from a theoretical standpoint than a specific, I think this is the one we need, standpoint. So, and so each culture, each country, each society, say, can, and we'll do some more uniforms. It looks like we're being hit hard for those right now. We can always cut back on them later. Needs to determine how democratic they want their constitutional republic to be. And, you can look at a lot of monarchies they're constitutional monarchies with democratic, maybe very strong. Sometimes the monarchy is basically almost powerless. And those are okay too. Constitutional monarchies with fairly strong democratic elements can also be rather good. Let's do another synthetic oil refinery. Let's put it there. Manpower this time compared to, well, yeah, I hope so. We have 2 million right now, Brett, and so we're working on it. Hey, thanks for following the channel. I do appreciate it. So Fenris, it looked like, okay, so well, I would say people revolt over misrule than purely lack of, and I haven't been following your conversation too deeply, but I'm not going to do it too much. And it's not coming from a materialistic misrule. It's just coming if people see that there's misrule, they're much more likely to revolt, no matter their format. Now, of course, if they don't have a mechanism to share their displeasure, shall we say, in their misrule, how to sort of change the system, then revolt becomes the option, and not like, oh, well, we can elect somebody different kind of option. What was the best cast? That's a good question, Arno. The Ju-87 Stukas were very good, but they were designed as dive bombers. They come out of what's his name? Milch? No, not Milch. The one that shoots himself. Don't have the Air Force. Oh, well, maybe he Air Minister is here. Nope. Not Castle Ring. The dive bomber guy. Probably somebody's exactly my point. Yeah, misrule is the problem. Oh, I competent rule, because you can have, I don't know, Italy, that at least at one point, in a post, like up until the 80s or something, they had one government per year as an average. They had new elections. Sometimes they'd last 3 months and they have to have new elections, and sometimes they last 2 years or something, or 3 years until they had elections. But Italy's been misruled democratically, in my opinion. So, Udet. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Brett. Yes, Udet. Udet was a dive bombing enthusiast. Dive bombing is effective, but dive bombing is, shall we say, a specialty thing. You need an aircraft as well as pilots that can go, dive. And you're sort of using the dive as your aiming device, obviously. And you're coming right down as most vertically as you can. You can't see me doing my hand maneuvers here. Someday I'll get a camera and whatnot. And, coming down using that to aim and then pulling out. Now, there's various things wrong with it. I'm pulling out and doing all that. That's highly stressed on the airplane, highly stressed on the pilot himself, the G-forces, as well as it really slows you up, so it makes you vulnerable for ground fire particularly. Where a more strafing attack, which is sort of the American way, and yes, I think the A-17, from what I know of it, I'm not an expert on it, but is a very good one. So more strafing attacks with bombing capabilities, I think, is a better tactic, because you can, although you do want to have air brakes to slow your speed up to better aim in your strafing attacks. As soon as you're sort of done with the strafing attacks and it's a much shallower pullout, you can immediately close your air brakes and put your engine to full throttle or whatever and pull away faster as your bombs are exploding behind you. And one thing that the Germans didn't have, at least at the beginning of the war, and I don't know if or when they developed them, but I know the Western Allies, and particularly I know that they did, and I presume they did it in Europe, but I just seen film footage of in various low-level bombing attacks on the Japanese, whether a parachute or other sorts of inertia brakes to bombs to slow them down so that they hit far enough after the aircraft has gotten out of the bomb effect radius. So if you power along and you drop a bomb and it hits the ground too soon, it'll in essence like blow the tail off the airplane, or shrapnel will come into the back of the airplane if it's not going fast enough. So the Germans didn't quite have that worked out in the 1930s, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not. Thanks, Arna. Someday we'll get that. As many of you know, I'm just still sort of at the starting process. Various things have sort of run a snag into it. Going to be moving, and in my new home, it's going to actually be a house. I'm going to build a studio in one of the rooms, a on-camera studio, and it's going to be, at least I think, awesome. You guys will get your opinions, of course, set once you start seeing things. So we will be doing that. But I learned on this thing. And I waited way too long. I should have, by the 5th video with my bad microphone in the early days, I should have gone out and bought a blue snowball or something like it. I thought it was important, but not quite that important. So I learned with that I'm going to research and get the right camera, or probably cameras eventually, but get the right model, spend the money, get the right setup, instead of just getting any old camera, any old sort of web camera to see my face or the background. I'm going to do it right. So whenever I'm going to add a new functionality to the channel, and I have plans, I've talked to Arno with some of them, so he knows some of my plans. Not that they're going to happen anytime soon, but sort of goals and objectives, and a few of the others have been let in on some of that. Generally, we're not putting it out to the general public because a lot of people can watch this, but got plans for things that we want to do, including outside of the studio, outside in the real world a bit. Not as a major focus maybe of the channel. Gaming will still be a major focus of the channel, but other things, other interesting things that we will obviously get feedback and see how people like it and how much we should do of it. Some of the stuff will happen whether people like it or not, but it may just happen a little bit because it doesn't go over well. Still want to do it and experiment and try it. But so, I have plans and things are going to happen. It's going to happen slowly, and I want to do it right. And so every major change increment kind of thing, I'm going to make sure I get the right camera, spend the money, do it right, get it set up right, and go through it that way. So it won't be happening fast. So back to it. So, in the early days, because they hadn't worked all that out, and somebody may know ground bombing better than I do here, close support ground bombing. that if you come in low and you drop your bombs, like I was saying, you can really damage your aircraft. And Udet and others knew that, and that's why they wanted to do the aiming process, get it, as you come plummeting towards the Earth, and be on target, release, and then have time enough to pull away and get it far enough away before the bomb hits and blows up. The U.S. solves it in some other things. So I do think the general principle of strafing type, whether you're strafing with machine guns or coming in that method and dropping bombs or shooting rockets, is a better method. Though I do think the Ju-87 is, throughout the war, still an effective ground attack, because they do use it in a strafing mode as well at times. I don't know the majority. I've just seen some photos of it used that way as well. Is an effective weapon. It's just because they lose control of the air power, it is just so vulnerable to other fighter attacks. So if you're controlling the air well enough, and since you want to slow down your approach on any ground attack enough to properly aim it, you're going to be vulnerable to incoming fire. It's so a faster aircraft, you still want to slow it down to the same type of speeds that the Stuka would be going, just because it doesn't go fast at all. The other thing, of course, which is definitely set up for more of the strafing type thing, is you can go the Sturmovik that's heavily armored, which is good. It's heavily armored, makes you slower for fighter use, but definitely makes you able to absorb more, ground-based anti-aircraft stuff and still get your aircraft home and you alive in it. So that is also a another good way of doing it. Okay. And no, I am not the best person on all of that, but I do have my opinions. I've watched some documentaries, read some books. On the topic, so I have some ideas, but sort of waiting to get some bonuses from some national focuses that I know are coming, but I don't know if I should wait. Yeah, let's do this. And we can more subs. Yes, you're absolutely right, Brett, about that. That was very much the thinking of Udet and others, that it was a close support type weapon. And obviously everyone knows this, but to move an artillery piece, it has, if you put it on this hill here, it can fire, only so far around from it. And to get it to fire over here, you got to pick it up and move it over to here. So one artillery piece, can only affect so much terrain. Now, longer range obviously affects, more area. But if you have back here, or well, over here since you have it here, if you have an air base that has flying artillery that can move, strike anywhere along here, relatively, it's a little different flying time, but if it's the same flying distance, you can get it up there, get to the area that you think you need it, then deal with. And the Germans definitely had some level, not great level early on, but some level of communication with ground staff for close air support. And so then you can call in the air, so you can shift it more. Now, it is a bit more expensive in, its maintenance, particularly train to maintain the aircraft. Artillery is expensive to make, aircraft are expensive to make. Probably the amount of firepower you can put on any one place. Probably the artillery is cheaper, but bombs are expensive. Artillery shells are expensive, but the artillery itself. But since the aircraft is a little more flexible, each individual aircraft is a bit more expensive. And again, I don't know the exact dollar or marks or whatever cost to all the production, but enough that it's generally cheaper. But since the aircraft is more flexible, but it can only be in so many places at any one time. So it's not a replacement, but it's definitely an enhanced ability that allows you to, whether you were trying to break through the enemy or stem an enemy breakthrough, it's much more flexible than artillery, even than motorized, or self-propelled guns. Obviously those are more flexible than towed guns, and so there's various different things. Signals intelligence. Air accident chance. No, we're not going to do experimental rockets, just checking out the... okay. Hey, thanks for following. Bruth? Hopefully I get that right. We'll do that upgrade. Unifil bills, long time. Let's just trying to keep them from getting too far out ahead. Oh, we can now grab the 4th Panzer Division. Sorry about that. And the 5th Panzer Division. And the 5th. Very good. Housing improvements. Yeah. Don't like that it's... Not saying that it's wrong, but you don't want to do too many things that increase bomb damage. I know it's getting time to upgrade some of these obsolete things, but well, maybe one more. One more upgrade to each of those. Okay, we could use I know part of that is just okay. Let's do that. And please host. Thanks, Arno. Get the encryption text. Yeah, I need to do that too, IKB. Yeah, not a fresh Coke just yet. We're probably going to play a little bit more, and then we're probably going to end the stream. We are going to be streaming tomorrow War Thunder on Twitch. Same starting time. Okay, SS Junkerschule. Good. Arctic base is 28 days. I don't know that I want to do that just right now. But I do get your meaning, Arno. Thanks. Let's do the KDF wagons. Okay, well, what, need more Panzer IVs. Transport vehicles, we're still working to catch up. Okay, more Panzer IVs. They're down towards the bottom. Yes, 8 a.m. my time tomorrow. So all of you are invited to want to play War Thunder with me. Large group is fine. Yes, we are. Brett and I were kicking some butt not too long ago. We did okay. Start 4-year plans from the 2nd year, starting the 3rd year. Don't know what the difference between these are. I don't see a difference. There, I see a difference. Keep. Where we're gonna put this one? I don't know. I don't get to how it's different from each other. I am bound and determined to keep War Thunder as part of the channel, partially because I just like it. I mean, none of you have to like it, none of you have to participate, none of you have to watch it. I do hope, and I know some of you guys are looking to play. But it's not the most popular thing. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, well, I'm going to deploy these guys early. And these guys not fully equipped. That's going to make these jump to some reds for a little while, but sort of wanted to do that just to see how it all shook out and what we need to do. Okay, yeah. Okay, so uniforms we're still a deficit on, and cavalry equipment, well, that's, and transport. Okay, well, let's Zog submits. Okay, King Zog, my buddy, you submitted. Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that. His son, if you don't know, ends up in South Africa. I think he's died now, but he was down there for a while, I know. Still trying to be a little government in exile or something. Well, if enough people want to, Arno, I am very up for naval battles. And I don't want to scare anybody off to like, oh, we're going to do naval battles so they don't show up. Or anything like that. Like I say, I'm pushing for people to come and play. Very likely we could do some, because I do want to do it, but if there's a major sort of revolt, I'm not going to push. Oh, sure, I understand, Arno. No, I want everybody's request. Because if everybody wants to play American tanks, then great, we'll play American tanks, because I'm happy to do it. If everybody wants to play naval stuff, I'm entirely happy to do it. And I did sort of promise last week that if Lum and a few others want to get me up in an air battle, we will do some air battles. Not maybe mostly. Okay, Toy Jet, well, you'll be missed. But obviously it's come if you like, or come if you can. So we will do at least 1 or 2 air battles next week or tomorrow. So you guys can see me, try to fly. Yeah, see what happens when you miss things? Trust me, I know falling on my face makes good TV, as they say. So, um, okay, IQB. I understand you got work and other important things to do. I do totally get it. Okay. Yeah, let's get this. Now we can convert over to better bombers once we get that in 88 days. Good to know, Brett. Most of the air that I have ground up is American air. Or, so either we're going to be playing at very low levels, or because I think for some of the missions and forming squads, it's best, I think, though maybe I'm wrong, but to be on the same. But we'll probably start out with arcade air anyway, so I don't know. Just don't over scare me with trying to do it. Better fighters now. Yeah. Yeah, it's... Yep, 39. That's it. Yeah, these are the fighters I want to research. Thanks, IKB. Okay, let's save this. And my butt's starting to hurt me, so on this chair. So I think we're going to end the episode and the live stream here. So guys, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for liking the videos. Thanks for all your comments and chat and those later on YouTube. Really do appreciate it. Just to keep the series flowing, I may make 1 or 2 episodes this coming week just on my own before next weekend. So you might want to be checking, those of you who watched it live might want to be checking. There'll be 3 episodes that you'll have already seen if you've watched the full stream, but there may be an episode or 2 more to catch up for next week. So be around then. And of course, those watching on YouTube, if you want to join us live on Saturday mornings, my time here in California, you can figure it out. It's on, you can check the Twitch channel. And see the time. It'll display it in your local time when we're starting. So, and generally it's 3 or 4 hours of play time after that. So, thanks a lot. See everyone.